It can't be controversial for our party to be pro-immigration, but we need a secure border. And when we ask or demand people to not believe what they see and see those kind of numbers, that's not.
It's pretty funny that like this is the guy, the person that is the most effective communicator of the right wing shift of the party is a guy who can't communicate at all. Just dumb as fucking bricks. Just a straightforward ogre.
Not a problem. It's like, well,
the party is so cooked.
Then you lose about that 100%. I've tried to describe you have up to 300,000 people encounters per month. And I put that in perspective with Pennsylvania. I'm like, that's the size of Pittsburgh showing up in 1 month. It's like, what's going to happen for those folks? If we want them, the American dream for those people, how can we possibly deliver that? Where do they go? And we can't pretend that that's not a significant issue, and we got to address that. So another issue.
It's not the new Joe Manchin. I think the party itself is reshaping itself in this attitude. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Issue like that, I don't.
Joe Manchin played the role of a spoiler, but at least the party back then would try to present itself as like somewhat progressive, someone on the side of working class people that cared about the truth with respect to like immigration. Now the party is saying like, no, we're becoming the Joe Manchin party. We're becoming the John Fetterman party. It's really insane to watch happen in real time.
I don't think that's about endless wars. I think there are two very just wars. I think Israel, for example, that's a very just one. And now I've never supported a ceasefire, and that was the right thing. I said I was going to follow Israel. And since they've refused to have that ceasefire, they have eliminated and broken Hamas and Hezbollah. Hezbollah was supposed to be like the ultimate badass in the Middle East, and now they were just a bunch of Keystone cops.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, John Fetterman, not exactly known for having a good functioning brain. Really cool that the brain damage guy is the guy that is communicating the right wing shift of the Democratic Party. It is pretty funny that he's saying this when, objectively untrue. Israel is at a hard time even bringing Hamas to heel inside of Gaza, which is supposed to be Israel's playground to begin with, an area that they have full sovereignty over, and they still have not been able to take out a militant resistance group. And they certainly have not had such a good time with Hezbollah and Lebanon.
And Iran.
But it's wild to say this in the eve of the like in the immediate aftermath of the ICC coming out and being like, yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu's a war criminal for mass starvation, utilizing starvation as a weapon. And the former defense minister Yoav Gallant is also a war criminal as well. Like he's just like, yeah, I don't care. Israel good. All of Israel enemies bad. I'm glad they never did a ceasefire. Would Fetterman hit that rare title of left grifter? Brother, what are you talking about? No, of course. Do you feel like he's grifting to the left when he says this? No, it's the exact opposite. It's people that fucking claim that they're leftists that then turn right wing immediately when they get power. Bro's one of the most right wing senators out there in the Democratic Party. He got brain damage and immediately became a omega reactionary.
Has been exposed as just, they really can't fight about anything. So that's been a significant development here. And now also I'd like to point out, Israel had blown up their nuclear weapons lab as part of that too. So, and with respect for Ukraine was invaded. And for me, it's about standing on the side of democracy. And I was very supportive about that aid. And I don't understand if the other side would now stop delivering that kind of aid. That's a disagreement, but I've been very, very clear supporting Israel.
He ran a pretty progressive Democratic campaign. He ran a progressive campaign and immediately, it's like Richie Torres. He ran a progressive campaign and immediately swapped it Like, so did Kirsten Sinema. Didn't run a progressive campaign, but like became increasingly more centrist in the process, increasingly more right wing in the process. It's the endless grift of constantly fucking grifting to the right. If he was a left-wing grifter, he would have, become more left-wing, I guess, despite not believing in it. Like, it's not a real thing. There is no real grifting to the left because there's no money on the left. There are people on the left, so you might present yourself as more progressive if you want to win an election. Okay? Having said that, however, there is no money there, so there is no reason to just like actually go further and further to the left once you actually win power. I think he's brain damaged because he was a progressive Democrat in 2016 when Bernie endorsed him for LT. He was shitting on moderate Dems, very unusual. Yeah, no, I think his situation is genuine. I don't even think he's a grifter. I think he just actively got brain damaged into becoming more conservative. Like that flip, especially for Israel, John Fetterman was always bad on Israel, okay? But not this bad, never this bad. And not only that, but also his wife is an undocumented immigrant, like was an undocumented immigrant. He was always pro-immigrant, pro-gay, pro-weed, all this shit. Like he was definitely, there are times when he actually fucking was in support of banning fracking, even though he's like the fucking Western Pennsylvania ogre that looks like this. He went back and forth on fracking as well. Pro-gay weed, yeah.
Israel and Ukraine.
You have, sir. And while you're on the topic of Israel, your colleagues voted down this Bernie Sanders bill this week to stop supplying weapons to Israel. The new incoming administration is touting their foreign policy national security team as the most pro-Israel in modern history. Wondering if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it was a pleasure to vote a big no on all those threes with my colleague from Vermont. I don't understand why anybody would bring that to the floor, but hey, if they want to go down, 80, 18, 19, that's up to you. But in terms of the incoming administration, I actually like what I see in terms of being a very, very strong pro-Israel through that. And I fully support that through that too. And when the administration will change, my vote and voice won't change either. That's going to follow Israel through that. And they have made a magnificent kinds of progress on the process of generating longer term peace by destroying Hamas, Hezbollah, and just demonstrating that Iran really, doesn't have the kind of capability to deliver any kinds of damage.
You indicated, Senator, this week, at least it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're open to supporting two of Trump's cabinet nominees so far, Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and Dr. Mehmet Oz for the CDC.
Dude, he's so visibly brain damaged. It's so funny. I'm telling you, dude, he just, I think it is legitimately brain damage. It's not an accident that so many UFC fighters basically become like incredibly fucking pro-Trump, incredibly reactionary. I think CTE has a capacity of making you more right-wing, making you more reactionary. And I think his stroke basically fucking bricked what remained of his brain, turned him into like a full tilt right-wing guy.
Is there anybody else on his cabinet list that you think you might get behind? And then on the other side, is there anyone on your sort of over my dead body list?
Yeah, well, and again, of course, I'm a fan of my colleague from Florida, and I'm going to vote yes for Senator Rubio. And then, with Dr. Oz, I mean, everybody understands that we ran in the same cycle, and it got kind of ugly. And I don't have any kind of bitterness. And I just expressed I'm open to a dialogue to hear what he has to say about these things. I'm not sure why that's controversial to say, hey, I think I saw a great from Bill Maher. He just said, I'm not going to pre-hate. I'm not going to pre-hate a lot of these things. And I'm not going to pre-hate this. I'm going to have an open conversation.
He said in an interview with Bill Maher that the stroke made him more conservative. Wait, I don't remember that. That's funny.
For anyone that I'm open to having part of that conversation. And there's some people that I just couldn't be able to vote for that. And there's some that might be able to enthusiastically vote yes. And like,
can you retract your condemnation of mass deportations? I don't want to keep this guy either. Bro, he's not going to get deported. They're not going to deport ogres. John Fetterman brags that brain damage made him abandon progressives. The Pennsylvania senator sat down with Bill Maher, of all people, to chat about leaving progressives behind. During an appearance on Real Time with Bill Maher, Senator John Fetterman credited his near-fatal stroke with making him a conservative darling, describing it as freeing. There's a line from the first Batman, Joker. He's like, I've already been dead once. It's very liberating, Fetterman told Maher on Friday. That's not reckless. That's just freeing. It's just freeing in a way. And I just think after beating all of that, I just really want to be able to say the things that I have to really believe in and not be afraid of it if there's any kind of blowback. Well, on the October 7th, progressive got him elected to saber rattle for Israel's brutal attacks in Gaza. His stance has largely been antagonistic, trolling protesters, rallying for a ceasefire by waving an Israeli flag over them, laughing at military veterans getting arrested, protesting for a ceasefire, and castigating the United States for abstaining from ceasefire resolution instead of voting against it. He has described student encampment protests as pup tents for Hamas and spread debunked propaganda denigrating pro-Palestine demonstrations in Philadelphia. Since adopting an aggressively pro-Israel stance, Fetterman has also backed harsher border policies, a curious stance given that he used to point to his wife's undocumented status as a child to tout his progressive bona fides. Speech therapist here. I work with TBI patients all the time, and their critical reasoning skills significantly decline, and it leads to reactionary sentiment. I mean, not every single person. This doesn't happen to every single stroke victim, okay? But I think that this is definitely one of the instances where it's very clear that, like, this person is, as a direct consequence of the fucking stroke, become more right-wing. Need a counterstroke to turn him back? Nah, it's over. Do we not think it was all the AIPAC money? I think the AIPAC money was the AIPAC money, or the fears that he might be, he might have been cast aside before the primary if he was to have such a strong stance against Israel, was maybe some of the reasons why he was primed to be positioned for Israel. Having said that, however, I think that he went full tilt, like insane. Because that doesn't account for like why he's right wing on the border. You know what I mean?
my Senator Rubio or Stefanik, or actually there's a fantastic a labor nominee as well too. In fact, a Democratic colleague from the House just texted me and saying, "Hey, I think she's really strong, and I think that's a great candidate." So I think there's good things there, and there's some things that I can't vote for. But
oh, shut the fuck up! Oh, she's pressing buttons. Calm down. No. Anyway, guys, love you all, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.